you. The first item on our agenda is a continued hearing for Wheeler Road. Please come up and give us a brief overview of the changes since our last hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Murphy here for the applicant. With me down to the right is DNU, who's the principal of the U66 Corporation, who's the applicant. John Rufo, the architect, is next to me, and Jim White, the engineer, is also at the table. This is, obviously, we've been here a few times, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing again. I think we all have a pretty good handle on where it is and what it's about. The changes that we've done since the last time was essentially reducing the size of the tower. The request was to get it down to 18 feet, which we did. And 4 signs, obviously, which we did. And also, there was a request to come up with some sort of examples, if you will, of some of the materials and designs of what the tower might look like in the event there's never a sign on the tower. Because that's obviously a different day as to whether there will be signs up there. So those were the main items that we were asked to take another look at, which I think we've accomplished. With the chair's permission, I'm just going to let John point them out up here for everybody.
Sure.
Good evening.
Hello.
So the 2 boards up here, everyone here has obviously seen already. This was the sort of from the very first presentation. This was from the presentation about 2 weeks ago. The board had comments relative to that, which we just reviewed. And so this is new elevation replacing the prior 2, in which we brought the height of the tower down to 18 feet above the main roof parapet line. You can see the difference here to there. And if you look, you can see where there was a little bit of discussion about the kind of the top of the tower and the way the tower met the roof. We sort of refined that and began to break up the massing of the tower itself to begin to understand the materiality of it, which I'll show you some examples of the materials that we're thinking about. We were also asked by the board to consider, well, what does it look like? I mean, since we're not approving signage from this hearing, what does it look like without signs on it? How do those materials begin to interact and break down? So we started to now look in a little bit more detail there. And as we discussed 2 weeks ago, was maybe a more important visualization tool, since we're not deeply into design yet, is, and you've got copies of this on the packets in front of you. Thinking about materials that could be involved in design. We haven't made any decisions yet, but these are certainly sort of players in what we do in commercial design these days. So what you see here are things like fiber cement board that takes many shapes and sizes, big panels, small, almost clapboard-like textured feel to them. A certain amount of potentially metal panel that you see in a couple of these examples. I think the main thing that we think about the use of these materials is that within the design of the building itself, there are places that I think you can look at and naturally see kind of large panelization, which should probably be kind of similar to sort of any one of these across the bottom, but mixing that, importantly, with the smaller scale materials of the fiber cement board that has kind of a finer grain to it, mixing in so that there's a scale of different materials and potentially different colors that go to make up the architectural language. And I think, as you can see, some of these forms are somewhat traditional, some of these forms are somewhat modern, and so I think these materials that we're beginning to work with can be used across kind of a range of project design types. And then finally, one more sort of context board. You guys have seen this a number of times now, but that view coming down the Middlesex Turnpike, where the tower, again, is down to 18 feet above the main parapet. So that view has evolved steadily over the last couple of months of discussions. But that, sort of the scale of that, as again, it's 120 feet back from the road, as kind of approximately equaling the scale of the bank across the street, which for all intents and purposes is right up on the street. So I think those are our main points and changes that were talked about last time, and we tried to address all of those. So if there's any other points that you guys thought we should make, but
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Jim, we'll start with you. Any questions?
No, I don't think so.
Brenda?
No questions. Did a nice job, thank you.
Charles?
I do not have any questions.
Mark?
No, again, I think you listened. You know, obviously you came down in terms of the height. The question that I had, I know there was some discussion about the cap before, and is there a cap, or?
Right now, we are articulating a cap. I think we talked about the difference between, there's
Okay.
some kind of cap up there.
Right,
which is
right.
Also represented in the examples on the right-hand side. I can take that image down if it'll help them put the one that's up before on the
Yeah.
left. But we also, I think, you guys articulated a bit of a fear that, well, if it doesn't have anything up there, then it's just kind of a
Right.
squarish block.
So-
And that's not probably a good solution either. So.
Is that the cap, what you're showing on the top there, the?
Yeah, I think if you look at this image here, it's kind of the back.
Okay, yeah, got it. Yes,
Okay.
good, thank you.
Yeah.
No. I have nothing further at this time.
John?
No?
Adam?
Not at this time.
All right, just getting back to the materials real quick. So
Yes.
which of the materials are you thinking is going to be on the tower itself, or examples of?
So, my sense is that the tower itself is likely to be a mix of a certain amount of metal panel, which is probably best identified here, and a mix of what's called cementitious plank or fiber cement board. I think what you see in some of the patterning on these buildings. You could do it all on a fiber cement board, but I think it's important that, I don't think the entire building would, all the opaque surfaces on the entire building would be a fiber cement. I think it's likely to be a mix of metal and fiber cement, so I think that same mix needs to make its way up into the tower. I think that would be really appropriate to make the two things work together.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions or well, just a comment on that, just if there's a motion made that we should condition it to be using these materials in the design on the plan, to fit the design on the plan. And just as a reminder too, that if any motions are made, that should put the caveat in there that there's no signage being approved with this approval, if it's approved, just because there's signage on some of these drawings, so I just wanted to be clear. Before we get to that, this is a public hearing, so I'll open this up to the public. If anyone would like to come up to the microphone, questions or comments, sure. Use the microphone right over there. Please give us your name.
Thank you. I'll just hide behind this sign. Here, let me come on out. I'm John Eiler. Is that working?
Yes.
John Eiler, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. So I wasn't able to see all the dimensions on the TV there, so I'm just going to double check some things. So it looks like the building is now 30 feet and the tower is 48. Is that the right way to read that?
That's the way to read it above the grade at the storefronts on that level.
That's the plus grade. Okay, how much is delivery?
So the building is 2 stories, and on the back side of it, there's another probably 17 to 18 foot story of the building. And above the median grade, as it's around the building, the number right there is 38.4 feet above mean finished grade.
Okay, so just going from the meeting notice data here, it described that the building is going to be 40 feet high from ground level, not above. Is that correct?
So the facade itself, I want to get up and point to this because it's specific, right? So the main facade itself, right, that looks out toward Middlesex, right, that's 30 feet.
Yeah.
Okay? Mean finished grade, because the grade changes all around the building, That's probably from a
The original.
previous-
Just, so that was the original proposal that they had, that they brought to us. They've been here a couple of times. We've been asking them to bring it down, so that,
That's 38 now.
yes.
Okay, and then the tower, which is described as 70 in the meeting notice, what is that now?
So then the tower above the mean finished grade again is 56.4 feet.
So the number was 70 is 56 now.
You have to look at the.
Yes.
Yes.
original
Yes.
drawing. Yes, thank you.
Right, and then just to complete the
Yeah,
key
yeah.
numbers here,
Yeah.
the pervious surface that has a 40% requirement was listed as being at 31%. Is that still 31 or?
Yes, it's still big.
So that's unchanged, okay. Thank you. I guess, so I just wanted to make sure I was arguing with the correct data, that it's good things are just a little. My general feeling on most of these appeals is that you should respect the will of what the citizens put in the bylaws as voted by town meeting members. So unless there's some incredibly compelling benefit to the town, which would have been somehow articulated in previous meetings, but I didn't hear it here, I'm sure it'll be a nice looking building, there's no doubt about that. I don't see how we just say the bylaw's nice, let's just do something else now because it benefits someone building something. And in particular, I don't see, maybe you can make an argument about, grades and what you're seeing from the road. I don't understand how there's an argument that says we should have less pervious surface because we'd like to make a bigger building. I assume that when this building was bought, the bylaws were understood. It's not a surprise what they were. So to come in and say, well, we can't make a useful building unless we make it bigger than what the bylaws allow. Like, well then why'd you buy the property? If you couldn't build something useful on it, you shouldn't have bought it, or you should build within the rules. I don't understand why we would arbitrarily decide to change that so that someone can make a larger building than the bylaws allow. If you don't like the bylaws, you should try to change the bylaws, work through town meeting the proper way, as opposed to just saying, it's too hard to change it through town meeting, so I'm going to try to skirt the issue with people. So I would recommend that unless there's something incredibly compelling for the town here that justifies ignoring that, we should just stick with the bylaw and say make a smaller building. Maybe you can make it a little taller than bylaw, but 8 feet is what, an extra 20% relative to the bylaw. So it's not a casual change. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
If I could, Mr. Chair, and obviously, I didn't go through the whole rigmarole to begin tonight because we've done it several times before. Previous speaker, I don't know if he'd seen any of the previous meetings on TV or not, but I think we have, in my opinion, sufficiently addressed the reasons why we're doing this, the history of the site, the history of the building, Mr. Yu's history with the building. He's been the owner for quite a while, and he's just looking to redevelop this property to keep it competitive with the other buildings along that corridor. I would submit that the site itself is a difficult one, as we previously discussed, and feel compelled to somewhat touch on this now because it's come up. The site is such that to do a competitive building that works currently requires going beyond the scope of the bylaws. And frankly, the reason you folks are here is because this legislature saw fit to create boards of appeals who have the authority to use their discretion when circumstances allow to stretch the bylaws or to expand the bylaws or contract them or whatever the case may be. If we weren't supposed to vary from the bylaws at all, there wouldn't be a Board of Appeals. That statute would never have been passed, and there'd be nothing to talk about. So that's why we're here, and that's why you folks are here, and you have the authority, obviously, to use your judgment when you feel the criteria set forth by the statute is met in a given situation. And I think we've gone through all of those things pretty thoroughly this is our fourth time here, the reasons why we're here and what we're asking to do. I spent quite a bit of time with you folks going back and forth to try to tighten this up and fine tune it and get it to a point that you seem to be satisfied and that we can make work, and I think we're there. So, with all that being said, I think this is certainly a case where a variance is called for. I do believe we've met the criteria set forth in the statute with respect to hardship and the three criteria that the statute requires this board to find. I'm happy to go through it all in detail again if the board thinks it's necessary, but I just would submit that we've had a pretty thorough discussion of those things over the course of the last 3 meetings, and hopefully we can move forward tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, please come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dave Miller, the town meeting member for East Cleveland, and Mr. Eiler is voice of all I was we have a set of bylaws, and I thought that in order to get a variance, that I would need a strong justification or hardship or something about the property that makes it difficult to do what the person wants. There's already existing business there, so I don't quite see how this falls in. It is something about the meetings, but it strikes me that we should come before town meetings and go through the bylaws. And the other thing is, what was the justification for allowing the larger impervious material? That's something that's very important in this town, so the aquifers, so why are we allowing these higher percentage of this material in the bylaws? That's not just.
Thank you. Tom, you want to address that?
Response, and Jim could chip in as necessary, but as we've discussed, because of the nature of the site, there's not a lot of extra room, but we are now creating treatment. Right now, the water sheets off into wetlands untreated, and we're going to be adding that subsurface on-site, which I would submit is a benefit to the town and to the surrounding wetlands, so that the variance that's required in order to make that work is, or I would submit, outweighed by the benefit to the town in now treating the runoff. And Jim, feel free to jump in if...
Yeah, currently, water just runs off the site, off the pavement, off the roof, directly into the adjacent wetlands. It's not going into the ground. It's not recharging the aquifer. Under proposed conditions, we'll be taking all the roof area and putting it directly into the ground. We'll be taking all the pavement area. We'll be treating that pavement area to remove any suspended solids, up to 89% of those, and then also putting that into the ground. So the end result is this a significant increase in recharge to groundwater, be much, much more than it is today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, just to address the comments, so this board has to make a decision whether we believe that there's a hardship for the things that they're asking for that go against the bylaw, which were advertised. They've made their case over the last few meetings, and we have to make a decision based on those things. The site that they're working with has issues with it, the size, the slope, the grade, everything. And we have to make a determine whether we believe that that's a hardship or not. So that's the reason that they're in front of us for these things. Right. So, just to clarify that, I don't know if the board has any other comments now, or? No. All right, we'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Any other comments or motions? Just as a comment, we should separate the three different variances that they're asking for, take separate votes.
Do you need a motion to do that?
Yeah, I believe I do.
And I'll make the motion that we do three separate variances. We do them independently.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to separate the three requested variances for Wheeler Road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. All right, anyone that wants to make a motion in any order, we'll take them one at a time.
I'll make a motion to approve the towers depicted on
Page 4. Yeah.
page 4 of plans July 2nd, 2019. Sufficient, or should we?
Not to include signage.
Yeah, it's not to include signage, of course, and condition to using the materials as shown on page 5.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded to approve the height of the tower to, as shown on plan submitted, tower height of 56.4 feet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
4-1. All right, next. Motion for the height of the building and motion, or against the height of the building and motion for the impervious surface.
Where's that noted on these? Or does it
They're on
have
the
to be?
original plans. They wouldn't have to, well, we could, the height of the building is there on that plan. And the original impervious hasn't changed,
Okay.
originally submitted, so.
Make a motion to approve the proposed impervious area of 54,910 square feet, making it 31% of the lot parcel as advertised.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the variance request for the impervious area at Wheeler Road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. And just the height of the building.
Motion to approve the height of the building as requested by the applicant, as shown on page 4 of plans July 2nd, 2019. No signage is to be approved, again, using the materials as shown on page 5 of the same plans, July 2nd, 2019.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the height of the building as shown on the plans submitted. Height of the building is 38.4 feet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. You're all set, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to recuse myself from the next hearing. Charles, take over.
You'll know right in the big seat. All right, Adam, can you read in 17 Sear Street for?
Sure. The petition of Robert Murray for property at 17 Sears Street is shown on map number 29, parcel number 107-0 of the Burlington Assessor's map. The applicant is seeking a variance to subdivide an existing single-family house lot, 32,970 square feet of land area with 172 feet of frontage, into two buildable lots. The proposed lots are, Lot 1 would be 16,245.2 square feet of land area with 86 feet of frontage. The existing house is set 10.2 feet from the southerly side boundary line and no closer than 21.0 feet from the street. Lot 2 would be 16,724.7 square feet of land area with 86 feet of frontage. The town of Burlington requires a lot area within residential one-family R-O zone is 20,000 square feet, and the required minimum lot frontage within the R-O zone is 100 feet. Article 5, Section 5.2.0, density regulation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Murphy for the applicant. This property is located at 17 Sear Street in Burlington. It's a single-family lot. currently consists of 32,969 square feet of land. It has 172 feet of frontage on Sear Street. The petition before you is to split that lot into two lots, both with a little over 16,000 square feet, both with 86 feet of frontage on Sear Street. In addition, there's language in there that the existing home that exists on that lot is 21 feet from the street and is 10 feet from the side yard. Bylaws require 15 feet and 25 feet respectively. So the variance request also requests variance for the existing house just to legitimize it where it sits. It's actually a grandfathered use. The house that sits there now was built in 1910 according to the assessor's records. I think, and some of the board might be aware, but I think the background is important here. So the prior owner of this property, they lived there for about 20 years. They put it on the market this past spring because they were retiring up to Maine. When they put it on the market, as I said, it's an older house. It's a cute, cottagey-looking type of a house. Has a lot of character. It has a nice garage off the back with what used to be chicken coops back in the day. So it's a very nice piece of property. And it's assessed at $495,000. So they put it on the market, and they were getting some offers for people looking to buy the house to live there. And then they got a call from a nationally not syndicated, but a daycare, nationally franchised daycare center, who wanted to establish a daycare center there. There's a law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that's allowed daycare centers to go in any zoning district, even residential. They're accepted from those types of zoning laws. This particular lot was very attractive to the daycare center because it had, as I said, quite a bit of frontage, 172 feet of frontage, and it's about a 33,000 square foot lot, so there's enough room to put a building with parking and egress in and out. So the daycare center came in and offered a number way above what all of the residential homeowners were offering for the property. So the sellers didn't want to do this to their neighbors, but money is money, and it was a pretty big number. There was and some of you may be aware of it, there was quite the whole neighborhood kind of rallied behind this because nobody wanted this to happen. This is a busy, kind of a cut-through street. It's a very pretty street with a lot of nice houses on it. This house in particular is an older property, but has a lot of character to it. It's right across from the library. There's a school bus stop right in front of the house. On nights like tonight, where there's a concert on the Common, people park there and walking back and forth. It's a busy, fairly congested place during certain periods of the day. So none of the people in the neighborhood obviously wanted to add the traffic that a daycare center provides first thing in the morning and at the end of the day. Not to mention the fact that they were trying to put a commercial use right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and the surrounding residences were going to be affected negatively, and they weren't happy about that either. So in any event, they got together. They had a meeting at the Grandview Farms one night. They invited the Board of Selectmen. They were trying to look into ways, frankly, for the town to stop this. The back of this property backs up to the parking lot right here at Town Hall. But at the end of the day, there was nothing the town could do. The town wasn't in a position to buy it, and the law was the law, so they couldn't stop it. And the property owners, the sellers, were trying to drag it out to the degree that they could to give the neighborhood a chance to come up with some sort of a solution, but they were buying a property up in Maine, and at some point they had to move forward. So right towards it was getting towards the end of it where they were just going to sell, and my client heard about it, and he came over and he agreed to buy the place for a number substantially higher than what the residential use that the residential buyers were offering, a little bit below what the kindergarten was, but nevertheless. So the sellers, to their credit, they took a little bit of or gave a little bit of a reduction in price and sold it to my client. And they moved up to Maine, And my client's now looking to split this to recoup essentially what he paid for it. So this board is well aware, and we just had a discussion a few minutes ago, that there's criteria that has to be established in order to request and ultimately obtain a variance. The three things that are required are, you've got to show that the projected or the proposed, or granting the variance will not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent of the zoning bylaw. The intent of the zoning bylaw with respect to area and frontage is to make sure there's a certain amount of spacing between each house. Every house has a certain amount of privacy. Nobody wants it to be Somerville where there's a house every 30 feet, that type of a thing. So that's the purpose of the frontage, and again, we're looking for a frontage variance and an area variance for each of these two newly created lots. Now, the intent of the bylaw, as I said, is to, in a residential setting, there's going to be a certain amount of spacing between the houses and a certain amount of square footage so that the property owner has some privacy. If this thing didn't go forward or doesn't go forward and the daycare center comes back into play, obviously it's no longer a residential use, it's now a commercial use in a residential neighborhood. So I would submit, as far as nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent of the zoning bylaw, I would submit by granting this and preventing that use from coming in, you're strengthening and reinforcing the zoning bylaw. That is basically to keep a residential neighborhood of residents with sufficient spacing for a house to be able to get in and out and have some privacy. Here, we're going to have a lot of roughly 16,000 square feet instead of 20,000 square feet. Literally smaller than a 20,000 square foot lot. If you go 200 yards down Sears Street and take a left to Forbes Ave, that whole neighborhood's all 10,000 square foot lots. So there are areas in this town that aren't 20,000 square feet. That, I can go through all the neighborhoods, but you guys are familiar with them. So this is going to be marginally smaller than a 20,000 square foot lot, larger than virtually every other lot down in the Forbes Ave neighborhood and some of the other houses that are currently on Sears Street. The frontage, instead of 100 feet, it's going to be 86 feet. Again, not 100, but it's a pretty good stretch of frontage, certainly enough to get a driveway in and out and have a nice front yard, space the houses in between them. So I would submit that criteria will not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent of the zoning bylaw is met. Zoning bylaws primarily in a residential neighborhood is for residences to be in there in such a way that it's to the benefit of the town. Commercial daycare center is not a residence. We've also got to show that the relief sought will not cause substantial detriment to the public good. Again, same thing. I would submit that if this doesn't go forward and the daycare center comes back into play, that's going to be a substantial detriment to the public good for the reasons that I already went through. You're putting a commercial use in an adjusted residential area. It's right on the town common almost. It backs up to the town hall. It's in the municipal center of town. It's a beautiful street. They've got nice houses up and down the street. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a commercial daycare center with cars coming in and out all during the day. So again, substantial detriment to the public good. I would argue that if you don't do this, that's a substantial detriment to the public good. Third one is hardship. That's always the most difficult one to show. Here we have a 33,000 square foot lot of land. It's the classic hardship, ledge, wetlands, things of that nature clearly aren't present here. It's a 33,000 square foot parcel of land. But I would submit, and it's a little bit of a different way of looking at it perhaps, the size of this lot, and the hardships has to be related to the topography or the shape or size of the lot. That's what the statute says. The size of this lot is such that it makes this a prime target for a use such as the one that was trying to get in there, and frankly would still like to get in there. It's got a lot of frontage, more than most residential lots. It's got more square footage than most residential lots. The location is right in the center of town, across from the library. It's a perfect place for a daycare center, except for the fact that it's in the residence. You can take the kids over to the library, you can take them out to the town common. Daycare centers will be lining up to do this, but primarily because of the size of the lot. If this was a regular 20,000 square foot lot with 100 foot of frontage, there wouldn't be enough room to put a parking lot and a driveway coming in and a driveway coming out. This is just a perfect size for that type of use, and it's an unusual size lot, especially in this area. So the shape of the lot is such that frankly creates a hardship for the use as with respect to what can possibly go in there. Neighbors at the meeting back, this thing first came up, there must have been 100 people over the Grandview Farm, you know, to a person. Nobody wanted it. They don't want this in a residential neighborhood. It's not a good thing. And if this variance is denied, my client's probably just going to sell it. He tried to step in to try to buy some more time to try to solve this problem, and he'll probably just sell it. And I don't think he would turn around and sell it to the kinder care center. He wouldn't do that. But you can bet your bottom dollar whoever buys it is fully aware that that's out there. And you can buy it for X amount of dollars and turn around and flip it to a daycare center for a lot more money than it's worth as a single-family residence. And that's just the reality. So the gist of the variance that we're requesting is by splitting this lot and keeping the historical old house with the garage and the chicken coop, and somebody had done a lot of research that back when we had the meeting at Grandview Farms a few months ago, and about the historical significance of that. But it's a nice looking building. It's a smaller home, but it's very nice, and that will be saved. There'll be obviously a new house going on the new lot. It won't be a crazy big house because the lot won't permit it. It'll have to meet with the envelope of all the setbacks. You got a 25 foot off the street. You got 15 foot all the way around. The envelope is not going to allow it to be a huge house. It'll be a new house, obviously. But that's one option, and the other option is a daycare center comes in, knocks down the old house, and puts a kinder. I don't want to say kinder care because I don't know that was the operation, but something like that in that space on a residential street. So that, nutshell, is the reason that we're here before you asking for this variance. I feel the hardship is the size and the shape of the lot. It makes it a candidate for the type of use that they're circling out there to try to put in there. And that is not a good thing for the town of Burlington. It's certainly not a good thing for the surrounding neighbors and the surrounding people. And I believe that all of the criteria that the statute sets forth that have to be met before this board can grant a variance, I would suggest they're all there. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions, address concerns, but that essentially is the gist of what the request is, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Jim, do you want to start us off?
So the existing house is staying, so it's just one house being built?
Yeah,
On the
we're
other
going
lot.
to split the lot. We'll need a variance because we're creating a smaller lot, but the existing house will stay there, and the existing garage that's chicken coop behind it will stay there.
Yeah.
The line is 15 feet off of that, so that it'll meet setbacks over the new lot, and then there will be a new structure built on the new lot.
So
It's more of a comment, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily our role to block every daycare center that wants to come into play. While I'm not necessarily in favor of anything along those lines, if I was to look on that street, there are other homes that are the same size lot that they could purchase and still go there. So what would we do? You know, if something else comes up, now we're blocking another daycare center, and that, I don't know that that's our role.
Understood. I would say I'm not sure there's another house along the street with 180 foot, or 100 and whatever it's.
There's one with 60,000 square feet. There's another one with 32,000 square feet.
Right, but the frontage, it's the extraordinary frontage that really, it sets this apart, because if you're going to put a commercial use in there, there's got to be a way in and a way out.
Of course. You know, I'd have to pull up the maps, but just looking at the basic lot size, there are other sizable lots on that street. And that's not just to say it's this street specifically. What do we do if it's the next street over that they want to put a daycare center? You know, do we block everyone? Again, not in favor of a daycare center by any means. I'm just trying to
No, understood.
talk out loud and, you know, and pose different concepts that maybe somebody else isn't thinking of. That's all I have for right now.
Okay, Adam?
Just one question at the moment. On the plan that's, or the diagram that's shown, it looks like in the larger portion of it, there's Briarwood that is directly across the street from the lot, but on the smaller side, it has the locus kind of like offset from where Briarwood is. Is it directly, it's directly across from Briarwood, correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a sketch, I think, that they try to just locate, the one up in the corner you're looking at.
Right. Because I want to,
That's not a, the one that's been engineered and surveyed is the big one. That's just kind of a sketch, it's just to locate it. Just a sketch.
okay, thank you.
I don't have any comments yet. I want to wait and see what the neighbors have to say.
I've heard some of the arguments. I've heard your arguments. I've watched some of the media following this, and I do agree with all your presentation in the sense that I think the size of the lot, the shape of the lot, make it a target for this particular type of use. And I think it's definitely, it's not a detriment to the public good. I think it, because of the location and where the town common is and the area, all the issues related to traffic, I think, make this a decision that should be in favor of allowing the variances to put a residential home in there. So, and I don't believe that it substantially derogates from the bylaw because of all the reasons that you've stated. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick questions, and then I'd like to hear from the public as well. So when they went up to the Board of Selectmen, there is absolutely no way around this. They can buy any parcel of land in Burlington anywhere. I could sell my house tomorrow to a daycare, and nobody can do anything about it.
They can. I mean, again, most lots in town are 20,000 square feet, give or take a few. And so it's got to be a sizable enough lot to fit the building, a size building that you would need, and with parking and everything else. Another example that happened, this is a number of years ago, but there's one right on the Mall Road that backs up to a residential area between Stony Brook and South Bedford Street. And had somewhat of the same neighborhood opposition back when that went in as this did. And the town looked into it and tried to stop it, but the fact is you can't stop it. It's allowed by right. That was put in there. Now, that fronts on the Mall Road, which is a little bit more of a commercial street, so it's not as, I would submit, a square peg in a round hole as this would be. But it was the same, it's essentially the same issue.
So are you referring to the Dover Amendment in
Yeah.
terms of the
Yes.
use and how that use can come into this area
It can be-
against the zoning?
Correct. That's exactly right, yep.
And so there potentially could be litigation surrounding the Dover Amendment and the development of this piece of property, if they were
It
to...
would only be litigation if the building department, for instance, refused to grant a building permit, or the planning board wouldn't approve a site plan, then they would, the applicant then, under the Dover Amendment, would certainly go to court, and frankly, they would win because it's been relitigated many times. And like I said, it's essentially the same argument that happened when the one up on the Mall Road went in a number of years ago.
And that issue was weighed, I think you described this meeting that occurred at the Grandview,
Yep.
the issue of the cost of defending against such a motion.
The selectmen made it very clear, that we weren't at a selectmen's meeting, but it was at a neighborhood meeting at the Grandview, but the selectmen were present. And the point that they were making was that that's a losing fight, because of the Dover Amendment. It's well settled. There's no way you can prohibit it legally. The only thing, the neighborhood was looking at the town to see if the town would buy it from the people and use it for some municipal use. And the town really said, there's nothing that we need, that we can do with it right now, so they weren't, not to mention the fact that for the town to buy something, it's gotta go to a town meeting, and there's a whole process, and the sellers will look to close in the next, few weeks, so it wasn't practical for the town to step in like that, and it wasn't possible for them to step in legally to try to stop it. So it was the train coming down the tracks, and it was gonna hit, and there was nothing they could do to stop it.
Okay, now, just one more question on the house that's there currently. Is that one's not gonna be torn down at all? Just gonna be
No,
redone a little bit and
The
resold?
existing house will stay, and the existing garage and chicken coop behind it will stay, while it's the same parcel. And then, as you're looking at this, Lot 2 would be a vacant lot, and a new house would be built within the envelope allowed by the setback and the zoning bylaws. So like I said, it's, just because of the size of the envelope, it's not gonna be a big sprawling, it'll be something in keeping with the neighborhood.
Okay. If there's any other questions or comments, or I can open it up to the public? Seeing none. Open the public hearing. If anybody wants to say anything on the microphone, please step up to it. Come on up to the microphone and, yep, microphone.
Dave Nolan, town meeting member. The only thing I have a question is, says that because of the size of the lot, that's daycare centers and what, something true. I just want to give an example, when my in-laws arrived, we lived in a residential street with all single-family homes that all had a third of an acre of lots. And the house next to them, one of my neighbors sold it, and daycare center went in there. It obviously wasn't a big kindergarten center, it was like a mom and pop daycare. But daycare center was not in there for the building, and there were cars coming and going. All I had was, a single car driveway inside the house. It didn't need any big parking lots or anything. It's a standard single-family house with a great big lot. And you have a daycare center there, so I just want to make clear that you don't necessarily need to have a big lot, lots of frontage in order to have a daycare center. Like you said, they can go in anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
And I agree with it 100%. And in fact, I'll bet you there's daycare centers that operate in Burlington now in the neighborhoods. But they tend to take in 2 or 3 neighborhood kids, that type of a thing. They're not a big commercial building like this type of a place would be.
Do we, just before we continue, do we have any idea what size the daycare center that was gonna be in there?
No, I don't. I know that they made an offer to purchase it. I assume it's similar to what the commercial one, just the one over on Cambridge Street, just across the way, the one up in Mall Road, those type of
Okay,
things.
okay, thank you. We can continue with the public hearing.
Thank you. I apologize for being a scout flight tonight, keeping it in business. And would like to help them for a very imaginative argument. So I have a little trouble following the argument on hardship. If I summarize it properly, I think the hardship is not so much to the property owner, but to the town. As I understand it, it sounds like we're saying the hardship is that the town may end up with something that it would prefer not to have instead of 2 residential lots, which is a rather tenuous argument in my mind. And not the definition of hardship that I think the Board of Appeals needs to see proven in order to pass something here. I think Ms. Rappaport, I believe, made the point that I think is very valid. All we're doing if we do this subdivision is preventing a daycare center that would be of the size that it was going to be in this particular place. What we're not preventing is a daycare center from being anywhere else whatsoever. So someone could
one moment. We have to continue this hearing if we don't get the TV back.
At the risk of further wrath, I'll continue.
Cue along one moment.
Have to wait until the
till we get
TV's back on.
Oh, we're rebooting? Okay.
So just to let you guys know, 10 Sears Street is 230 square, 10 Sears Street has 230 feet of frontage.
How big?
230. Sears Street and 2 cars totaling 230 feet northwest on Sears Street.
Turn this light on.
It's free.
That's-
Here we go.
So I think we're good.
Okay. So as I was saying, this prevents the daycare center on that exact one site. There's nothing that prevents a daycare center from, if they truly need 200 feet of frontage, nothing prevents them from buying 2 adjacent lots, exact same purpose, literally next door to where this lot is. So it isn't even really preventing a daycare center in this neighborhood necessarily, it's just making it slightly harder. But the opportunity is absolutely there. As Mr. Miller pointed out, right on my street, there's one, if not 2, daycare centers that are run out of houses on regular sized lots. So the fact that, yes, it may prevent a larger daycare center, but it's not preventing all of them by any means. So it's not even going to necessarily accomplish that goal, if that's what the goal even is. And furthermore, as was pointed out, I'm not sure it's really I completely respect the board's ability and power to bypass bylaws where appropriate, but I don't think it's appropriate to be doing something for a policy of preventing daycare centers in very specific neighborhoods. Use this one? Okay. So let's pretend it prevented a daycare center in this neighborhood, which it is not entirely clear it would. If Burlington is that good a place to have a daycare center, it just means they'll buy a different lot and put it in someone else's backyard. So I definitely don't think it's fair or appropriate for the board to say, we're going to allow a variance to prevent one here, when all that's really doing is pushing it to somewhere else. If they want to build a daycare center, they'll find a way to do it. So is it fair that this variance goes in so the daycare center gets pushed into person X's neighborhood instead, who presumably has every bit the same right to be disappointed by that as people on Sears Street do? So I don't see it that argument's appropriate here. In terms of being a significant variation from the bylaw, I mean, we're talking about 2 lots, one of which will be 17% and the other which will be 19% below the 20,000 square foot bylaw. So it's not a trivial adjustment relative to what the bylaw is. And there was discussion about, the alternative is either we get to build these 2 houses or you got a good shot at getting a daycare center again. I didn't hear a third possibility, which is just build a bigger house on the bigger lot. So that is yet another way to recoup some investment in this. Again, sure, there is no doubt from the owner's point of view, the way to maximize profit on this is to divide it into 2 lots, keep one ready-made house and make a whole new one. But I don't believe the purpose of an appeal is to maximize profit for the owner. It's to make sure there isn't some unreasonable hardship that's not above and beyond what anyone else would be doing. And it's not, again, as I said in the previous case, when this property was bought, it wasn't a surprise what the bylaw was. They knew exactly what they were going into. And I think holding a gun to our head and saying, if you don't let us subdivide this, or else you'll probably get a daycare center in there, is not the kind of blackmail that we should really be submitting to. Because every single property owner who owns an above-average size lot could come in and make the exact same argument. So unless we're willing to say for every 30,000 square foot lot that's somewhere near town center or whatever, I think it's completely inappropriate to do that in exactly this one place for the convenience of one builder. So I would recommend that we keep the lot as is, respect the zoning bylaws as they are, and have the builder work within the same confines that everyone else is working within. Thank you.
Thank you.
I may briefly,
Sir, if you'd like to.
Chairman. And just quickly in response, I don't want to, I did object to the term blackmail, and I just wanted, I feel compelled to mention that. My client didn't have to buy this. He overpaid for this because he was trying to, people that lived in the neighborhood, he didn't think it was good for the town, and he stepped in and he bought it. He overpaid for a single-family house because if he didn't, the other people had an offer sitting on the table that they were about to sign, and there would be a daycare center going in there. This isn't blackmail. He didn't buy this to try to come in here and split this and make money. He stepped in to try to stop something going into that neighborhood because he felt that was an important thing to try to do. Now, he's into it clearly for more than the thing is worth as a single-family house, and now he's trying to mitigate that. But to describe it as blackmail, frankly, is just not fair, and I just feel compelled to point that out. And to the argument that you stop it here, it could go in anywhere. This Dover Amendment, Mark knows, has been around for a long time. Anybody seen any big daycare centers going into a neighborhood up in Fox Hill or down off of Francis Wyman, or, you know, pick a neighborhood? No, because you see what they look like. They require a good chunk of land. They need parking, they need egress and things like that to operate that type of a daycare center. Like I said before, there's probably 100 family-owned neighborhood daycares scattered throughout town, and they're in most towns. And those are fine. Those aren't generating a line of traffic coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning with people who work down Lamar Road, who drive in from Bill Ricker or Wilmington or Tewksbury, whatever. They drop their kid here and they go to work, and then they get back in line at 5:30, picking their child up to go back home, and the traffic's lining out up onto the street. Take that, and if you drive by the one on Cambridge Street, you'll see it during rush hour, you'll see it the one up in Moore Road. Put that on Sears Street with the library right across the street, a small residential street. It would be a mess. So I would respectfully point out that this is different than some of the what-ifs that were just pointed out. If those what-ifs were reasonably likely, they would have happened already. The Dover Amendment's been there for a lot of years. This is a special situation where all of the stars were aligned with between the location, the size of the lot, the amount of frontage available, and somebody at this place recognized it and targeted it. That doesn't mean if this doesn't work here, that now we're going to go, pick a neighborhood and try to jam one of them in there. They're not going to find this type of a situation in other neighborhoods in town. If you did, they probably would have found it already. So this is not kicking the can down to somebody else's neighborhood. This is a specific situation which is real, and I can tell you right now, the realtors know who was involved and who wants to buy it. Anybody who goes in to buy this property now knows about it too, and it'll happen. And as far as knocking, just building a bigger house, that would mean knocking down the old house there, and frankly, he wants to save that house. It's a nice old house. It's got some historical significance. It adds to the character of the neighborhood. Knocking that down and put up a big honking McMansion is not something that he wants to do. He's just trying to preserve the neighborhood the way that it was, and that's the only motivating factor here.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor or against? Go on up.
My name is Len Canizaro, and I'm a budding abutter and live at 13 Sears Street, where my wife and I and our children have lived for 48 years. I think that those of us, the residents on Sears Street, would probably say Mr. Murray is a hero for buying this property at a price that was somewhat over the market value of the house on that piece of land. And I think that if we did a poll of the people in the area, we would probably say that the splitting of this piece of property into two lots and with saving the house that's on there and building another house is probably, I would say, the lesser of two evils of two houses versus a daycare center. My question would be, as a point that has already been made, about demolishing the house that's there, using the piece of property for a larger house, no side lot variances, no reasons to call for a violation of the bylaws. I'm just wondering if Mr. Murray has done a financial exercise to say, what could he recoup or may even make a small profit on building a larger house, what the cost of building the house plus what he has already paid for the property. If that could be done and he could recoup his investment, I think that would be a very favorable thing to the people that live on Sears Street and those in the area. So I think if that couldn't be done, if it wasn't financially feasible to build one larger house on the property, then again, I think that probably going the variance route would be, quote, the lesser of two evils.
Thank you. Tom, would you like to, is there,
I don't know whether he's done that.
Yeah.
I can tell you with what he paid for this lot is way above what the normal knockdown in Burlington's going for nowadays. That's usually in the 400 to 4.25 frame. So that's roughly what a builder will look for, they're willing to put into the value house. He paid a lot more than that for this, so.
so can I ask a quick question before we continue the public hearing? I'm not a builder by any stretch of the imagination, so I have no idea what these things cost to build, but is it fair to say that if we didn't split this lot right now, that he would not be able to build a larger house and recoup his money and the profit that he needs to be sustainable?
Could he? Sure he could. I got a copy of the deed that was recorded here. He paid $735,000 for the property. That's almost twice what a knockdown goes for in Burlington now. So, could he do it? I'm sure he could. Would he make money on it? I don't know. Maybe not. But it's substantially more than a knockdown in Burlington is going for. So, and then and again, the corollary to that is that you're going to lose the existing house, which maybe I'm the only one, but I would submit that I think has value. I think it's nice to have a couple old houses in town that still add character, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Just to follow up on that, I was watching some of the Grandview meeting and the Historical Society. I don't know, he made a presentation about that and indicated that his role did not begin until the property is going to be knocked down. So there's the risk that now you're going to have the Historical Commission involved in.
Right, they did appear at that meeting, and they were adamant that they wanted to save that house, and apparently the chicken coop has some historical value too. I'm not quite sure why, but it does. And so they were very interested in whatever could be done to save the house.
Okay. Thank you. We can continue. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Sean Connors. I'm a town meeting member of Precinct 3, and I also live at 14 Sears Street. A lot of the comments that were made, there's probably some validity to about putting a daycare anywhere you want, but in Burlington, most of those are single-family homes that people actually live in. They're not concrete structures with 50 kids coming in every day with a side yard for a playground and, gym equipment outside, and the amount of traffic in and out every day. I was at the meeting at Grandview and have spoken to most of my neighbors. And yes, everything was hunky-dory, and a single-family person had bought that house, we wouldn't be here. But we are here because of what's on the table in front of us. I think everybody would agree that looking at two houses is a lot better than looking at one daycare center. The theory that, anybody could buy a lot somewhere and do it, but the lot has to also be attractive for where it's located. Located in the center of town where 400, 500 cars go up and down this road every day, that's a great place to be for a daycare center. So my personal opinion is I'd love to see two house lots rather than a daycare center. I don't think that, I believe Mr. Murray's built a lot of houses in this town, and I don't believe he would ever build something that wasn't going to fit the neighborhood. As far as I'm concerned, I think this should be granted. And, the other thing we'd always talked about too was until there's a Community Preservation Act, we're never going to be able to do anything about daycares coming in. So that's something to look forward to in the future, but obviously, as you know, in this town, nothing gets done overnight. So, if this is where we have to start and save one neighborhood at a time, then that's might be what we have to do. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any other questions or comments? Start with
None.
Jim?
I'm good.
Nope, I'm good.
John? I just have a couple of comments. At least in my opinion on the board, I can only really act on what's in front of me, not what might happen down the road if somebody else sells a house or somebody else, another company wants to come in town. And from what I can see, I can see why the daycare would want this area. It's a very popular area. And I think that this would be an incredible hardship on the neighborhood in general. I think also on the builder, in 48 also specifies financial or otherwise. I think this could be definitely a hardship on the builder as well, financially. And I think that the best option for this area is a subdivision. I'm not one that typically agrees with this, with subdividing a lot. This happens to be one of those specific cases that it's better than the alternative. So I'm in favor for it, but if there's no other comments, are there any other motions or?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the variance for 17 Sayre Street for minimum lot frontage. I believe it's identified on
86 feet.
86 feet, or is it?
They're both 86.
Oh, they're both 86 feet, so make a motion to approve the minimum lot frontage for lots 1 and 2 as identified on the proposed subdivision plan, sheet 1 dated May 22nd, 2019, and also for an area variance, lot 1 shown on the plan to be 16,245 feet, 0.2 square feet, and lot 2 to be 16,724.7 square feet.
And the sideline
We
variance.
have to do
The sideline variance is 10.2 feet. Again, a motion to approve the variances as advertised.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve subdivision of 17 Sears Street with 86 feet of frontage on both properties. Lot 1 to be 16,245.2 square feet. Lot 2 to be 16,724.7 square feet. The left Lot 1 to have a left side variance of 10.2 feet as shown on job number 219003, dated 5/22/19. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board.
I need to bring my paperwork back. I gotta wrap up. All right,
Come to order here.
yeah. Excuse me. Oh, they're going anyways.
Make a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to adjourn, right?
Now we gotta accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from our last meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.